Hey, what's up, Scott Balkan here with Imagination Creation Films, and today we're finally getting around to that full review of the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. Oh yeah! So it's been a couple of weeks in the running here, but we finally have completed this review of this camera, and I want to make a couple of points here. I review cameras the way I shoot them. I don't do elaborate charts and sensor tests with graphs and color science, and I don't do that. I go out and I shoot the camera. I learn how to use everything I can out of it, and I go and I shoot stuff. And when I come back, I grade it, I look at it, I learn from it, I go out and I shoot some more, and I try to basically get the best image I can out of these, as well as I break it. I want to make sure that I know what the camera is capable of. And so it's not a simple comparison, here's this compared to this, although we will have some. It's not that kind of review. If that style of review doesn't interest you, go find a technical one out there. There's no love lost, but that's how I review cameras. I mean, quite frankly, you come here for my amazing good looks, my charming personality, my extraordinary sense of humor, and the way I shoot cameras. And lastly, before we jump in, I want to ask that you go ahead and click subscribe to this channel because we are a filmmaking community and we are growing and we want you to be a part of it. And I do have a Patreon if you want to support me that way. It helps me create content like this just for you. So let's get into it. I want to go through first the camera itself, and then we'll go into some images and some video that I've shot with it and the comparisons that come along with it. So first off, it is not pocket. It is in no way a pocket camera. It should not be confused with a pocket camera. It is huge. Like this, you have to have cargo shorts to fit this in your pocket. If you put a lens on it, you're not putting it in your pocket. So calling it a pocket camera is a little silly. I get that they were trying to denote that it wasn't the full-size camera, but come on. Build quality. It feels nice in your hand. The ergonomics of it, they fit. It is a large camera, so it's gonna fit large hands really nicely. Pretty cheap feeling. I mean, really cheap feeling. It is all plastic everywhere, except for the little lens mount here and this little 1/4-20 and that 1/4-20. Everything else, it's plastic, and you can tell. The buttons, they're kind of spongy. They're like pushing in on chewing gum. The record button is not a half press and then a full press. For those of you who are used to just half pressing it to get that focus, don't do it. It's just gonna start recording. It does have some custom buttons up top, so you can actually program these to do the functions that you want, i.e. You could do false color, you can do peaking, you can do any of those functions you want with these buttons. It has on the top, it has ISO, shutter, and white balance all on quick buttons, as well as on the touch screen itself, you can actually touch those options. And on the back, it has a quick button for high frame rate, which is nice. So if you're shooting at normal 24 and you're like, oh, let me get a quick high frame rate of that, boom, just tap the button, immediately goes into 60 frames a second or whatever you have set for high frame rate, and you can pick that up. And also there's a zoom button. The zoom is like 50%. It's not amazing. It helps, but it's not amazing. Then there's the menu button, and there's the playback button. There is a dial on the front that allows you to select whatever it is that you have on your screen. So if you have your ISO button select, you can scroll with this way. If you don't have anything selected, it will do your aperture. On the side over here, you do have quick panels that go to various functions. There is a microphone and headphones. There is a full HDMI. There's a power, and there's audio input, which they don't include the cable, but you know, it is. The HDMI is full size. There's USB-C. The power connector is a locking power connector, which is nice, but that means you're not gonna be able to just go and buy a cheap one really easily or just have one laying around. It's gonna require a special one. And speaking of power, you are definitely going to want the power adapter because this thing chews through batteries like you wouldn't believe. Going around here to the back, the screen is basically a 5-inch display. It's clear, it's crisp, it's a nice display. It's very Blackmagic in its display quality, so What I have found over the years is that the Blackmagic displays always make the image look better than it actually is. I'm not sure how or what. It always looks crispier on here. It always looks like there's more color on here. It was the same way with my Ursa Mini. I don't know. I don't trust the display that much. It is not that bright. In full sun, you're going to be shading it like crazy in order to get your image out of it. If you're wearing sunglasses, forget it. It does not pop out. And for a camera that has not got a viewfinder, there's no viewfinder up here, you're going to be shooting it a lot from down here. You're going to be hand holding it. And when you're doing that, your display is now at an angle that is not conducive to seeing it. You can kind of see it, but you're going to be doing this a lot, which is hard to get focus. So then you're constantly shifting and changing it. I don't really care for that much. I wish they would have included a pop-out display. Honestly, I'm not sure why. It makes no sense why they couldn't, but Blackmagic is doing their own thing when it comes to this. On the back, the menu system is fairly simple. You have your frame rate, you have your shutter, which the shutter I have it set to degrees, so it's 180 degrees. You have your time code, you have your ISO, you have your white balance, you have your tint, and then you have your battery. And your battery is a little funky here, so let's go into the battery for a moment. So it uses these LPE6, LP6C, whatever they are, Canon batteries. It's a standard battery for Canon. And these you get about 1.5 to 2 hours on a Canon camera. On this, they say you get an hour. You do not get an hour. You get between 30 and 40 minutes depending on what you're shooting. If you're piggybacking an SSD on here, you're gonna get 30 minutes. And it sits here and it'll flash. And it flashes between the bars, the number of bars that it has, and the percentage. And they don't exactly match up. So it'll flash full and it'll be at 60%. It makes no sense to me, I don't know why. When it gets to 20%, turn off your camera and swap your battery because you're gonna end up losing a shot. It just randomly turns itself off between 20 and 0. Most of the time it's between 15 and 20%, and it just says, you know what, I'm done, I'm powered off. It does shoot ProRes 422, HQ, and LT, and proxy. It shoots RAW, it shoots the Cinema DNG lossless, it shoots 3:1 and 4:1. If you're familiar with Cinema DNG, all the NLEs will use the RAW uncompressed, but the 4:1 and 3:1 is pretty much only reserved for the Resolve. Blackmagic is, and they promise that their new Blackmagic RAW will be coming out. And it is a compressible RAW, and it's supposed to be pretty nice. They said it'll be for this camera. I would wait for it because I have no idea right now if it's going to be of any value. Shooting RAW, this is a 2 terabyte SSD. You get somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 minutes. Shooting ProRes HQ, you're going to get over, like 200 plus minutes on this, and it does look good. The differences are, of course, RAW. You can change your color temperature, your white balance, some of your exposure in post, whereas ProRes, you're baking it in. Personally, when I was shooting this, I shot some RAW so that I could compare it. The RAW format in its current standard is completely useless to me. I shot it so I could compare it, I could show you guys, but I shot ProRes the entire time. ProRes HQ is what I was shooting, and I think it looks fine on here. It will shoot DCI, which is 4096 by 2160. It'll shoot Ultra HD, which is 3840 by 2160, and it'll shoot HD. It will shoot a variable frame rate from, I think, 2 to 60 frames a second. It'll shoot that in any of the formats. If it's in HD, you can go all the way up to 120 frames a second. You can apply LUTs in here, and you can record in here to CFast or to SD. Let me tell you a little word of advice on that. The SD cards and the CFast cards, you better buy the fastest you can get your hands on. I have fairly fast cards that do over 150 megabytes per second, and I could not record a lot of features in here. I could record HQ at 23.98 frames per second on DCI, and that's it. I couldn't go any faster. I couldn't go any of the RAWs. It would record for like 10, 12 seconds and then die. It would stop because it couldn't keep up. So buy the very fastest you can get. This is a Samsung T3. They have the new T5s that are out there, just ever so slightly faster, but it is over 400 megabytes per second, and it will not record lossless 60 frames a second at 4K DCI. It will drop frames. So that goes to show you these are fast, really, really fast, and it can't keep up with this. So I'm not sure what can. I don't have a single device here that could. You're gonna spend some money on those. Also keep in mind that the bit rates of these codecs until the new Blackmagic RAW comes out, they're really high. You're gonna consume a lot of data. So that is something to keep in mind when you are buying or looking at a camera like this. Do you have the storage to store all of your data? Because this will chew through it like crazy. You know, I shot red going on my trip, and I had 14 terabytes of red footage, and I had that fairly compressed. That was 14 terabytes of data. This is going to have a higher data rate than that. Does it have the usage of the higher data rate? I don't think so. This does not have, says 13 stops of dynamic range. I'm gonna give it about 12 and a half. The picture quality, we're gonna go to those details here in just a moment. I will go through that as we bring it up on the screen. Just a note also, this does not have any stabilization built in. You're relying 100% on lens stabilization, and quite honestly, it's not that good. When you have lens stabilization and you're holding it, you're gonna get jitters. So if you're used to stabilization, you're gonna wanna be putting this on a tripod or a monopod or something, because it will show up. Now, when you're thinking about buying this camera, yes, it is $1,295, which is a pretty good bargain for the camera itself. But keep in mind, you're gonna need super fast SD cards or super fast compact flash or super fast SSDs. That comes at a cost, and that cost you add on. You're not just gonna be able to grab an SD card off the shelf and put it in here. It's gonna chew through batteries. Honestly, you're gonna want about 10 batteries because it will chew through them that much, and if you're out for a day shooting, you're gonna need it. So looking at the picture quality of it, as you can tell, I did compare these between the GH5 and the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema. I posted these images online, and it was interesting to see how many got them wrong. I will say it was not the best environment to produce the highest comparative analysis. I mean, we had changing skies, we had changing conditions. It was tough. We didn't have the exact same lenses to put on, so we did swap them back and forth to try to even it out. I wanted to set up a low light condition just to go through just with the Blackmagic itself for the different ISO settings, so you can see the noise pattern levels and where they kind of kick in. I did kind of get a little sense of some fixed pattern noise that you get it at the higher extremes, but I had my little friend here sitting at the table with a little candlelight and a little backlight just to kind of have some things to blow out and some things to keep as dark as possible. You can make the GH5 look like the Blackmagic, and you can make the Blackmagic look like the GH5. Grading them both by themselves, they both come out fairly similar. We were out in the late afternoon, early evening, trying to get some fun comparative shots, and even that, it wasn't working 100% for us. Not the camera, just the conditions. So all in all, I hope this review of this camera really helped you. I'm sure I didn't answer all of your questions, but hopefully I answered enough of them for you to make a more informed decision. I will say at this point, as far as this camera is concerned, I'm not going to buy one. When the Blackmagic RAW comes out, I might relook at it once I see what the data rates are going to be. I don't think this has enough justification to stop using the GH5 and use this. Honestly, the GH5 has better audio. I'm used to that camera, so there's a little bit of I wouldn't say bias, but comfort with it. I know what I can and can't do. When this one comes out with the RAW, maybe I'll look at it again, but I'm not going to buy it. That being said, if you are on the fence, this produces a beautiful image. It really does. It was not a displeasing image at all. It was very filmic. It doesn't have a lot of dynamic range, so it's not truly filmic, but again, the GH5 is not either. So it's not fair. It's not a red in any way. This with RAW is not a red in any way. Do not confuse, oh, this is just as good as a red. Oh, this is just as good as an Alexa. It's not. Do not be confused by that. And it's not as good as the Ursa Mini 4.6. It has a lot more dynamic range. The image itself, the color science, the picture that comes out of this is very close to the way the Ursa Mini looks. So as always, if you have any questions or comments, do feel free to put those in the comment section down below. I do try to read and respond to each and every one, even if it's just to say thank you. I do have a Patreon if you wish to support me that way. I would really appreciate it. I do appreciate all of my supporters that way. Also, go ahead and click that subscription button. You can find it just below over here, and the alert bell next to it, because that'll let you know every time I upload a video or I'm live streaming, because you want to know. And this is a growing community, and we want you to be a part of it. You can follow me on all social medias at Scott Balcom, except for Snap. Nobody does that anymore. And yeah, as always, as I like to leave it, don't let your passions center around your life. Let your life center around your passions.